Hey guys, obviously I have changed backgrounds. Again, we are in what's hopefully going to be my new permanent recording space. I think the audio sounds better in here just because it is like a really, really tiny room of mostly the stuff that I don't have a spot to put yet. Spot to put stuff yet. Apparently I can't English again today. Anyway, so this should be my permanent recording spot. I'm no longer in the downstairs bedroom because that's where my dad is. Not right now, but my parents came down to visit at the beginning of the month, and my dad tested positive, asymptomatic positive, for COVID within the first, not even 24 hours of him being here. And because I didn't come into contact with him because I was at work when he arrived, I still touched things that he touched. So that's apparently good enough for the health department, and so I got to be under quarantine as well. So this is really the first opportunity I've had to be alone in the house and record because I feel weird recording when other people are here. That's just me being weird. So they are out for a drive right now. The parentals are, because my dad got sprung yesterday and my mom was going crazy in the house, so they went for a drive. I did change locations halfway through recording, so if the audio changes, that's why. Also, the dog was present through making most of this video again, because he's a needy child and he's got a new toy to play with. So that's one fun noise you get to hear in the background. Another is the fact that they are weed whacking and mowing outside of my townhouse right now. So yeah, but this should be the permanent recording spot once I get my desk moved up here, which is, as you guys may or may not have seen, down in the downstairs bedroom. We've got to get that desk out of there once my dad is done using it. And up here, I think the audio is better up here. I got lots of chapters for you guys today. I think I did 5, chapters 5 through the end of 9. So I wanted to make it up to you of not uploading for so long. I'm so sorry. I want to try to do better for the next few weeks because I can't really get out to the barn until I have 2 negative COVID tests. So I should have some time while my parents are out doing stuff and I'm stuck at home, and I'll have more time to record. I did find a what looks like a decent microphone, so I'm going to try to get that at some point and then maybe figure out a better camera. Ignore whatever's going on with my hair because it's quarantine and I don't care. If I've repeated anything, it's because I have recorded this video twice already, and I can't remember what I've said in the last video versus this video, so I'm sorry. Anyway, so enjoy these chapters. I did put a little warning at the beginning of chapter, I think it was chapter 9, just because it's not, there are some things that aren't quite child-friendly. I don't know the age of what you got, of, who's listening to this, so it's nothing like super explicit. It's just like hints of stuff, but it's nothing too bad. Hi, baby. Yes, this is the child. Here's the doggy. Here's the doggy. I'm currently sitting on the floor, which is why he's so, because there's no chairs or anything up here. I've got my hi. Yeah, I've got my laptop sitting on a box because this is the storage area for stuff that I just don't have a place to put yet. So, there you go, dog. Alright, this intro is getting long. I apologize. If you just want to completely skip the intro, I will put the time that the actual recording starts down into the description box. So, yeah, enjoy. Dramatic. Trash reading with Sarah. Jonathan's POV. I texted Elijah to bring Rain's truck to the pack house, since she told me earlier that her keys were still in there, so that made it easier. I glanced over at Rain, asleep against the window. Her lip was finally starting to heal, along with the bruises scattered across her face. Why did those kids jump her like that? Just thinking about it pisses me off. Anyone who looks at her can tell she's a kind person. I mean, she couldn't even see straight, and she was going to attempt to walk to the school doctor and drive to the pack doctor just so I wouldn't miss school. Then there was the thing that was boiling inside my head. Why doesn't Elijah want her? She's nice and caring, so it can't be a personality thing. Hell, he, like me, never even talked to her before. And it couldn't be a looks thing because she's beautiful. Then I remembered. Rose. That's why he's going to reject her. I told him dating her was a bad idea. Hell, dating anyone before you find your mate is a bad idea. Rose is good looking, yes, but she is a horrible person. When he's not around, she does a complete 180 and turns into a complete bitch. She starts fights with anyone she can and uses the fact that Elijah is her boyfriend against anyone who gets in her way. I've tried telling Elijah, but she has him wrapped around her finger. I don't know how someone like Rose got such a good guy like Elijah. I let out a sigh before turning into the driveway. I parked the car and turned to look at Rain again. These next few days are going to suck for her. The mate bond has been established, so now every intimate thing Elijah and Rose do will bring her a lot of pain. Then she'd go through heat, and that would be hell for her without her mate. I unbuckled and walked over to her side of the car. Carefully opening the door, I unbuckled her and contemplated waking her up. I took one look at her sleeping face and decided against it. I had just picked her up and got her out of the car when I saw her black truck pull up. Elijah got out and made his way over to us. "Give her to me now," he said, trying to control himself. "Go inside, Elijah," I said, tightening my hold on Rain. "Not without her. You're not allowed to touch her." "Who gives you the right to make that decision?" I said angrily. Rain started to stir in my arms. "Jonathan, what's going on?" She mumbled, sleep still evident in her voice. I moved my attention away from Elijah, and my eyes softened at the sight of her trying to bury her head further into my chest. I leaned down closer to her ear, quietly saying, "It's okay, just sleep." She nodded and fell asleep again almost instantly. I looked back at a now very pissed off Elijah. He had no right to be mad. He didn't want her. How could he tell Rain, on her birthday no less, that he, her mate, doesn't want her? Then come here getting all pissy 'cause she's in another man's arms. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down to a point where my voice wouldn't wake up the sleeping girl. "You need to go calm down. We'll discuss this later," I said, ending the conversation and walking away before he could say anything. I then walked upstairs to my room because I know for a fact she hasn't moved into the pack house yet. Once we turn 17, we move into the pack house so we can be with our mates away from our parents who live on the lower floors or in houses of their own on the property. I carefully opened and shut my door before walking over to my bed. I slowly laid her down and covered her up before attempting to leave her to sleep. I only walked a couple steps before her small hand grabbed mine. "Please stay," she asked, her voice cracking a tiny bit. "I don't want to be alone right now," her grip on my hand tightening. "Are you sure?" I asked, wanting to make sure that this was what she wanted. "Please." I nodded, walking to the other side of the bed. I took my shoes off before crawling in beside her. She turned over facing me once again, burying her head in my chest. It wasn't long until her breath evened out, telling me she was asleep. Soon after, fatigue came over me, so I placed a small kiss on the top of her head before nodding to myself.
I decided right then that I was going to protect this girl, no matter what happened. Chapter 6. Jonathan's POV. I didn't sleep long before I was woken from Elijah and our mind link. Ugh! I was too tired to understand what he said the first time. Whatever. If it was important, someone would come and get me. I let out a tired sigh before turning to look at Rain. Her bruises were almost gone, and her lip was closing up, which was good. Hopefully, her ribs were healing just as well. A few strands of her dark brown hair had fallen into her face, so I gently tucked them behind her ear. All of a sudden, my door slammed open and Elijah stormed in. "Jonathan," he started before he spotted Rain. "What the hell is this?" "Shh, she needs to sleep so she can heal," I yelled as Rain started stirring, burying herself deeper into me. Elijah's eyes were switching between brown and black as he was trying to control his wolf. I remembered that he and I needed to talk. I carefully moved Rain so I could get out of bed. Once I was successful, I turned towards Elijah, signaling to the door. He followed me to the training room, so we were away from curious eyes and ears. I shut and locked the door before leaning on it. "What's your deal, Elijah?" I asked. "You chose Rose. You have no right to be acting this way." "I know, okay? I know I don't. It's just what?" "You don't want her, but you don't want anyone else to have her." He looked at me with frustration swirling around in his eyes. I scoffed at him. "That's bullshit and you know it." He let out a sigh. "She's my mate, Jonathan. Whether I want her or not doesn't change that." I was about to respond when there was a knock at the door. "Elijah? Babe, are you in there?" a female voice called out. Ugh, it was Rose, of course. I rolled my eyes, unlocking the door. I gave Elijah one last look before opening the door. "Oh, Jonathan, it's a lie," she started asking before I cut her off. "He's in here." I turned my head to the side. "I'm going to go make sure Rain is okay." I turned and walked down the hall, leaving an irritated Elijah and a confused Rose. I opened my door as quietly as I could so I didn't disturb Rain. Only when I looked towards my bed, she wasn't there. I looked everywhere in my room before I realized that the bathroom sink was running. I calmed down immediately and walked to the bathroom door. "Rain, you okay?" I softly called out. When I didn't get a response, I knocked again. "Rain?" Still no response. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. Panic started to fill me. "Rain! Rain! Open the door!" I took a few steps back before kicking the door open. My heart dropped at the sight I was met with. On the bathroom floor was an unconscious, bruised, and beaten Rain. I called out for help and tried to get her to open her eyes. "Rain, come on, open your eyes. Please wake up." Not long after, people came in, and thankfully they brought the pack doctor. I told everyone to back up and to clear the way as the doctor and I carried her back to the office. "What happened to her?" the doctor asked. "I don't know," I answered. I looked down at Rain again to see the extent of her injuries. She had a gash on the side of her head that was bleeding a lot. She had a black eye forming and her lip was busted open again. And that was just her face. Who did this to her? I didn't leave her alone for that long. This is the second time today that she was beaten, only this time there was no one there to stop it. What did she do to deserve this? Chapter 7. Rain's POV. "Rain, come on, open your eyes. Please wake up. What happened to her? I don't know." The voices I was hearing were muffled, but I could mostly make out what they were saying. Who the voices belonged to, on the other hand, was a mystery to me. I, unsuccessfully, tried to open my eyes. More muffled voices filled my ears, along with the sounds of beeping machines and doors being opened and closed. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled my nose, mixed with the smell of blood. I tried to open my eyes again, but they wouldn't budge. Had she found her mate yet? one of the original voices asked. If so, she needs them desperately. A sharp pain shot through my entire body, making one of the many machines I was now hooked up to go off. I wanted to cry out, scream, anything really, but I couldn't move. I didn't know what the cause of the pain was, but whatever it was breaking my heart along with my wolves. The answer to that person's question was yes, I had found my mate, but he wouldn't come. He probably didn't know what had happened to me. Hell, I doubted he would care if he did. We're losing her. She's losing a lot of blood. Everyone's voices started to fade, and my other senses were starting to fade as well. It wasn't long until I was greeted by nothing but darkness. I don't know how long I stayed like that. It could have been minutes, or it could have been days. But when the darkness left, I was grateful that the shooting pain left with it. The smell of cleaning chemicals once again filled my nose, no longer accompanied by the smell of blood. I did, however, smell the scent of another wolf. It wasn't Elijah, but it was someone who was highly ranked. Slowly but surely, my senses were coming back. I could feel a bed beneath me and a hand holding mine. I could hear the steady beeping of the machine next to me and the steady breathing of whoever it was in the room with me. "Rain, please wake up," someone asked. I recognized the voice, but my head hurt too much to try and figure out who it was. I once again tried opening my eyes, curious to see who was next to me. I stopped myself when the smell of my mate filled the room. The grip on my hand tightened as the scent grew closer. I smelled the scent of another female wolf mixed with Elijah's, and my heart broke more. "How is she doing?" a female voice asked with fake concern. "The doctors say she'll be okay," the one holding my hand stated. It was Elijah who spoke next. But they say that without her mate, she won't heal as fast as she's supposed to." The girl spoke again. "What do you mean?" The one holding my hand started to let go, but with whatever strength I had, I tightened my grip. Whoever it was, they were keeping me calm. "When you find your mate and get injured to this extent, without them, your wolf becomes so weak that they can't heal you," he said through gritted teeth. I started trying to open my eyes again, only this time I was successful. My eyes were assaulted by the bright lights in the hospital room that I was in. I had to blink a few times before everything came into focus. "Rain," someone to the side said. I looked over and saw Jonathan sitting next to the bed, holding my little hand in his big one. I tried to say his name, but my throat was so dry I could hardly get out the first letter. He immediately held up a straw to my lips so I could take a drink of water. I welcomed the cold liquid that ran down my throat. "Thank you," I told him, my voice still quiet and kind of scratchy. He nodded, eyes full of worry and questions. I tried to sit up, but a pain in my side stopped me. I let out a groan of pain as I laid back. "Hey, try not to move. You're injured pretty badly," Jonathan said. I still hadn't looked at Elijah or the woman he was with, and this seemed to irritate him. He quite loudly cleared his throat, causing both Jonathan and me to look at him. I refused to meet his eye, so I decided to look at the woman he brought in. It was none other than the girl he was in love with. The girl who probably had no idea that I was his mate. The girl who most likely will never know the truth about Elijah and me. It was Rose. "Hello, Rain," Elijah said. "Hello, sir. You're probably here for Jonathan," I said, letting go on Jonathan's hand, which made him tense up whilst simultaneously making Elijah react. Rose let out a small giggle in an attempt to get rid of the tension that hung in the air. "No, silly," she said in the nicest sounding voice she could muster. "We're here to see you." Chapter 8. Rain's POV. I looked at her, very confused. Why in the world would they come to see me? Might I ask why?" I asked, glancing over at Elijah and Jonathan. Yeah, why are you two here? Jonathan asked kind of aggressively. Rose cleared her throat, uncomfortable with the obvious tension building between Elijah and Jonathan. Well, we heard that you were injured pretty badly and wanted to see how you were doing, she said as she intertwined her fingers with Elijah. I looked down, not wanting to look at them anymore. A few moments later, Jonathan grabbed my hand, providing some comfort. Look, guys, Jonathan stated, Rain needs to rest. Oh, of course she does, Rose said, forcing kindness. We'll come back some other time. Come on, Elijah. I need to talk to Jonathan. You go, and I'll catch up when we're done, okay? Elijah said, taking everyone by surprise. Rose looked at him with suspicion creeping into her features before she nodded and left. As soon as the door closed, silent tension consumed every inch of the room. I cleared my throat slightly before speaking. Would you like me to give you two some privacy? I asked Jonathan. He looked at me like I was crazy. What are you talking about? You can't even sit up. How do you expect to give us privacy? He said, chuckling slightly. I don't know. I could army crawl to the cafeteria or something, I replied with a small smile forming on my lips. He gave me a look that said, You think I'd let you do that? Before shaking his head and turning towards Elijah. What do you need? Jonathan asked. It's the next day, he answered, looking at me. What are you talking? It's not my birthday anymore, I interrupted Jonathan. He's gonna reject me. Elijah sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He kept his eyes trained on his shoes, refusing to meet my eyes. Jonathan was getting more and more pissed the longer the silence continued. I've seen what losing a mate can do to a person, both by death and rejection. I'm not going to do that to you. All I ask is that you move on with your life. Find someone and fall in love. Find someone who wants you above anyone else, he said, turning around to leave. I was hoping and praying that Jonathan wouldn't say anything until he left. Unfortunately for me, my prayers were seen and laughed at and denied. Where are you going? Jonathan growled, causing Elijah to stop and face us again. You're a coward. I grabbed his hand to try and pull him back because he was slowly stepping closer to Elijah. Jonathan, don't! I quietly pleaded with him. He was too angry to listen to anyone. What makes you think about just being your unwanted mate is any better than being your rejected mate? Jonathan, I tried to reason with him again, only to fail once more. This has nothing to do with you, Jonathan, Elijah said, getting angry. Jonathan opened his mouth to reply, but before he could even get a word out, a horrible pain shot through my chest. The machines I was hooked up to started to go off, causing a ton of nurses and doctors to rush in. They pushed Elijah out of the room and attempted to do the same with Jonathan, but he didn't budge from my side. What's happening to her? He asked, panic evident in his voice. She's starting to go through heat, one of the nurses answered. Get ice packs and start an ice bath, one of the doctors ordered. My entire body felt like it was on fire. It was getting so hard to breathe, and my heart was beating so loud in my ears. My vision was blurred with tears as they were trying to break my rising fever. All the voices in the room started to mesh together, and I started to panic. I started hyperventilating, and I started to lose feeling in my limbs. Rain, look at me, I heard Jonathan say. Thankfully, he was close enough to my ear that I was able to hear him. I turned to look at him, and I felt him grab my free hand, trying to calm me down. Breathe, Rain. Look at me and breathe. Help me, I begged him. Make it stop. Please make it stop. Whatever you're doing, Alpha, it's working, one of the doctors said. Tears were running down my face. I was pouring in sweat, and so for sure I didn't expect nor understand what he did next. Before I could process what was going on, Jonathan smashed his lips against mine. Chapter 9. YouTubers note, this isn't exactly suited for young children. Jonathan's POV. Rain's lips were burning hot against mine. Now, you're probably wondering why I suddenly kissed Rain. Well, here's the thing. When a female wolf starts going through heat, pretty much the only way to stop the excruciating pain they experience is by doing something intimate, whether it's mating, having a makeout session, and anything in between. Although it works best when with your mate, anyone can help. The only downside is that when a male wolf is around a female going through heat, it is very easy to lose control of their wolf on both ends. They brought a ton of ice packs and ran an ice bath for when her fever spikes again. I can only ease her pain so much. I reluctantly pulled away from her and leaned my forehead against hers to see if her temperature had dropped even a little. Thankfully, it had, but it took all the control I had not to connect our lips again. "Better?" I asked her quietly. She nodded and looked at me with her hazel eyes flashing gold as her wolf tried to take control. I know I probably should leave while I was still in control, but I couldn't leave her to go through this alone. I wet down a hand towel and laid it across her forehead. After I had gotten her fever under control, the doctors and nurses left to help their other patients. On the bright side, Rain would heal a lot faster now that she's in heat. The whole point of going through heat is for she-wolves to get pregnant, and because of this, they can heal so they can safely carry their mates' pups. "Jonathan," she asked. I hummed in response. "Do you think that anyone will ever want me?" She sounded so vulnerable, and it made my heart ache to know that she felt unwanted. I stood up and walked over to her hospital bed. "Make room," I said. She carefully scooted over, and I laid down next to her. I moved my arm behind her head and gave her a soft hug. "I promise that you will find someone who wants you. I promise that you will be loved." "Pinky promise?" she asked, bringing her little finger up to me. I chuckled at her while interlocking our pinkies. "Get some rest. You should be able to get out of here tomorrow." "Okay," she said, relaxing into my side, and quickly fell asleep. I was woken up in the middle of the night by Rain's fever spiking, and that worried me. I quickly untangled her from me and picked her up and carried her to the ice bath that fortunately the nurses had refilled. I couldn't put her down without dropping her because she was sweating so much, so I did the only thing I could think of. I carefully stepped into the tub and lowered us down into the ice. I could feel Rain shaking as she was beginning to cry. "It hurts! Please make it stop!" she begged me. All that I could do was to hold her as the ice cooled her down. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I just spent the next 20 minutes apologizing because that's all I could do. After her fever finally broke, I called the nurse to bring us a change of clothes. I went into a different room to give Rain some privacy, and when we were in warm clothes, the sun started to rise. It wasn't long after that Rain was discharged. The doctor talked to me and gave me a few tips on how to make the next few days easier for her. The one thing he stressed the most was to stay by her side as much as I could. After we got into my car, I explained that until she was done with the heat, she'd be staying with me. She understood, but she gave me directions to her father's house so that she could grab some clothes. But when we arrived there, we saw Rose and her friends standing by her front gate. I parked my car by the curb, and Rain and I shared a look of complete confusion. "Stay in the car," I told her as I got out. She nodded and listened to me. I walked over to Rose and her posse, and I immediately recognized some of them as part of the group that jumped Rain. "What are you doing here, Rose?" Rose's friends looked very surprised to see me and immediately lowered their heads in respect. Rose, however, was just irritated. "I'm here to talk to Rain." "What do you want to talk to her about?" "Her being Elijah's mate."